On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
Welcome to The Talk, live on Talk TV, the home of straight talking. I'm James Max. News breaking in the last 30 minutes that Johnny Depp has won his defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife Amber Heard. We'll be discussing that, plus we'll debate if footballer Kurt Zuma should have been jailed for kicking his cat. And we're asking if employees should be allowed to show tattoos at work. Join me on the panel are Talk TV's Isabel Oakeshott and Mike Graham, columnist Nicola Thorpe and journalist JJ Anasiobi. So, breaking news tonight. Johnny Depp has won his multi-million-pound lawsuit against ex-wife Amber Heard. A jury ruled her 2018 article where she claimed to be a victim of domestic violence in the Washington Post was defamatory. The jury awarded Depp £8 million in compensatory damages and £4 million in punitive damages. Ms Heard was countersuing Depp, but the jury found 2 of her claims were unproven. However, on 1 count, she was awarded £1.6 million in compensatory damages and nothing in punitive damages. Here was the verdict.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven, by clear and convincing evidence, that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? Answer, yes. As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $10 million. As against Amber Heard, we, the jury, award punitive damages in the amount of $5 million. Do you find that Ms. Heard has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, no. As against John C. Depp II, we, the jury, award compensatory damages in the amount of $2 million.
It was a 6-week trial between 2 of Hollywood's biggest celebrities, where we heard gruesome details where both parties alleged abuse. Sharon Osbourne joined us now. Sharon, you were with Johnny yesterday. What's your reaction to the result?
I'm very happily surprised because I didn't think that it was going to go like this, I must say. So I'm very happy, very, very happily so.
And, you know, as I say, so you were at the Jeff Beck concert at the Royal Albert Hall, where some people are raising eyebrows that Johnny Depp turned up not only on stage, but also that he's here and not there. What was the mood like?
It was great. I mean, look, it was Jeff Beck's night. It was his show, and his friend Johnny was performing with him for, 4 songs. So it was, it was a great night. It was all about the music. They were both great. And it was, about the music. And I think I said this the other day about what's Johnny meant to do, run and hide. He did what he had to do. He could leave the courtroom. He didn't have to stay there for the verdict. And so he carried on with his life. You can't carry this with you forever. The case, as far as he was concerned, had ended and he could leave. So he left.
OK, so he left. But, I mean, this is a sort of fascinating situation. I mean, how do these 2 individuals pick up their careers? Can they both pick up their careers? Or is this a Johnny Depp wins, Amber Heard loses, Johnny Depp gets new work and is able to work again, Amber isn't? How do you think that the industry is going to respond to this?
Well, look, it's proven, this whole case has proven that Johnny has a huge fan base worldwide. And they stick by Johnny. His fans have stuck by him through this whole scenario. And Amber doesn't have that fan base. Now, everybody goes with how popular you are. So the thing is, everybody's going to want Johnny in a movie because they know his fan base will go and see that movie. And Hollywood forgets very quickly. They have very short memories, and especially when you can make money for somebody, and that's it.
And And, you know, this is an extraordinary situation. I mean, you know, we see the statements that have been released both by Amber Heard and actually by Johnny Depp. I mean, Amber says, the disappointment I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence was still not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence and sway of my ex-husband. And then his statement, 6 years ago, my life, the life of my children, the lives of those closest to me, and also the lives of people who for many, many years have supported and believed me, were forever changed, all in the blink of an eye. I mean, this is the most extraordinary case, the most explosive case. The ramifications are huge, but also we have seen the most horrendous and gruesome details about both of these individuals. I mean, were you shocked by the details that we learned?
No, of course not. It's you know, come on. It's we've all heard this stuff before. Come on. And anybody that goes, oh, my golly gosh, I was really shocked. Come on. We're all adults. We all know how dirty and ugly marriage can get. And, you know, hopefully you can turn it around. But in their case, they couldn't turn it around. And when you get people that are so, it's volatile relationship that they had. And, you know, it turns ugly, especially when there's drink and drugs involved. It always ends ugly with drink and drugs.
It absolutely does. Sharon, I know you're going to stay with us. Meanwhile, let's hear from Johnny Depp's lawyers.
What we have said from the beginning, that the claims against Johnny Depp are defamatory and unsupported by any evidence. We are grateful, so grateful to the jury for their careful deliberation, to the judge and the court staff who have devoted an enormous amount of time and resources towards this case.
So that was Johnny Depp's lawyer speaking just a few minutes ago outside the courtroom. Look, the response to all of this is absolutely extraordinary. Nicola, let's come to you first. What do you make of this verdict? What does this say to those who are perhaps taking cases through? I mean, I think you were quite shocked by the result.
Yeah, I was shocked by the result. I think, look, this case has shown that I think both men and women can be victims of domestic violence. That is something that we have known for a long time, but critics of the Me Too movement would say that it only supported women. That is not the case. What I am concerned about with the result of this trial is that everyone's going to focus on Johnny Depp winning everything. In fact, they were both found liable for defamation. And my biggest concern, actually, is what are we saying to women and all victims, alleged victims of domestic violence, if all that Amber Heard had done is come forward and say, I was a victim of domestic abuse? Will other victims feel like they cannot come out and say something like that publicly without the potential of it going to some kind of trial? That's my main concern.
I mean, I guess the other point is, though, that this has been such a sort of showbiz celebrity event that one would hope that we can all park that as this is unusual. I mean, when Sharon was talking and saying, you know, when drink and drugs are involved, I mean, yeah, it does get ugly, but how many situations do involve drink and drugs to that extent? I mean, Mike, I mean, you know, you've covered so many different trials and lawsuits. I mean, this one stands out as the most extraordinary with the most hideous details of their lives.
And the trouble is, in the end, you have to take somebody's word against somebody else's word, and this particular courtroom and this particular jury and this particular judge has said that they didn't believe Amber Heard. So as much as her accusations might have been horrendous and she might have said terrible things happened to her, they didn't believe it. They basically said that she was not sexually assaulted by Johnny Depp and he didn't beat her. And that, in the end, is the legal verdict. So you have to go with that.
From what we've seen playing out in the media, Johnny Depp has been the favourite one of the two of them continuously. The public have backed him and have been against Amber from the very beginning. And let's not forget that in this country, it was decided that we could call him a wife beater because that's what was decided over here. But with the jury over there, and I'm sorry, I know they've made their decision and it's done. I think that jury is fickle, and I think they've fallen under the spell of a Hollywood superstar.
Do you think so, though? Because I would take the view that I think everybody knows that these two individuals have probably done, you know, awful things to each other. But on the other hand, how on earth does one then deal with the situation here that he is kind of, we know he's a wrong 'un and we know that there are aspects, and he was quite honest about that. Amber was never honest about that, and maybe that's the issue. I mean, Sharon, look, let me bring you back in, because, you know, clearly we've got some differing views on the panel, where, you know, the ramifications of this are pretty awkward, aren't they?
They are. They are, but you know, you have to remember too that you're not dealing with everyday people here. You are dealing with people that are, you know, put on pedestals, that have unbelievable lives. They are treated, you know, with kid gloves. Amber, not so much as Johnny, of course, but they're both, you know, put on pedestals by the public, by the industry, by everybody. And, you know, Hollywood doesn't care about a fight or a disagreement. Of course, they care about when it gets physical, but, you know, people can be horribly verbally abusive, which to me is worse than being hit, because when you're hit, it can get better, but those words never go out of your head. And you can drive somebody mad by verbal abuse. But, you know, these are, they're not everyday people. Look at the lives that they live. You can't say that this is terrible. It is terrible, yes. But, you know, these things go on all the time in this industry. It went on in my life. I mean, I know loads of people whose lives it goes on with, and hopefully you can patch it up and work to get your marriage back on course and work to get sobriety.
Absolutely. Mrs. O, thank you so much for your input on that. Isabel, what do you make of what you've seen here, the result here, and the implications?
So I wasn't at all surprised by the result. I followed it quite carefully. I found her a very weak, a very unconvincing, a very unreliable witness, really. The whole thing was obviously extremely unedifying. I'm probably a bit less worried than you are, Nicola, about the issue of whether this will deter other women who have been victims of domestic violence genuinely from coming forward, because libel cases are vanishingly rare. They're incredibly expensive to bring, and you have to have a reputation to defend. And the vast majority of those that are caught up in these awful situations don't have either the money or the reputations to bring any cases. So I don't think it will have that effect in this country. But I think it is also important to point out that Amber Heard did win a bit of this case. And it was extraordinary how immediately after the verdict came in, that was so rapidly glossed over by commentators.
Yeah, so Depp wins everything, and of course there's one piece about it.
We were talking about it in the green room before we started the show, that we were there, we heard the verdict, and she actually did win $2 million, and no one seemed to be...
I was sitting there going, what?
Why is nobody talking about this? She did actually win something, and I'm with you that maybe in a defamation court this might not have as many knock-on effects, but in the court of public opinion, I think women will be concerned and worried, because all of these fans we're talking about that Johnny Depp has had around the world, OK, they're his fans, but generally speaking, people who weren't even invested in him as an actor or her as an actress have gone on a hunch, basically, that she was wrong and he was right. And that's the story that is as old as time, that people will automatically think that a woman is weak, that she is lying, that she has to be this perfect, innocent woman in order to also be a victim of domestic violence. It's not that clean cut.
But then I guess, you know, there are some aspects of all of this where one looked at the different performances, if you like. We're dealing with two, you know, very accomplished actors and the performances. Perhaps it's a good idea if we just remind ourselves of perhaps some of those highlights, if you can call them that, from the trial.
She threw the large bottle and it made contact and shattered. Realized that the tip of my finger had been severed.
No, I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want this to be the reality. I didn't want to have the man I was in love with. I know you don't come back from that. You know, I'm not dumb. I know you can't hit a woman. You can't hit a man. You can't hit anyone. You can't just hit somebody.
But never did I myself reach the point of striking Miss Heard in any way.
It's been agonizing, painful, and it was humiliating.
So, look, some of the main points that we saw for that extraordinary case. JJ, look, when we think about these two individuals, they've now got to pick up their lives, but also their careers. You've been covering showbiz for some years now. You've seen pretty much every kind of incident happening. What happens next? Who gets hired? Who doesn't?
Johnny Depp gets hired. He's already been making films the past couple of years, independent ones in different countries. Johnny gets hired more and more, and in 6 months' time, he has a massive smash hit and everyone forgets about it. Amber Heard will get vitriol and abuse across social media, and she'll get a couple roles, and then eventually she'll get smaller and smaller roles until we don't see her acting anymore. Maybe she goes to the stage. That's how it goes, and that's completely unfortunate, because as I said earlier, he was called a wife-beater in our own English courts. So that is not to be disputed. That is what happened. He did beat her. And yet here now, we're going to gloss over it completely, and it's going to be, no, Johnny's innocent. That's not the case.
Yeah, I guess, look, we're going to have to assimilate what all of this means. But coming up next, we've got the latest on the preparations for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Well, that's going to be beginning in the morning. You're watching The Talk live on Talk TV. Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Now, the final preparations are underway for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations that begin in the morning. The military have been rehearsing outside Buckingham Palace ahead of the Jubilee pageant. The finishing touches are being put on the Mall ahead of tomorrow's Trooping the Colour and RAF flypast. That's when we're expected to see the royal family on the balcony. Millions are gearing up to celebrate Her Majesty's 70-year reign over the 4-day weekend. The most keen are already camped out on the Mall.
I think the first one where I camped out was the Diamond Jubilee. then William and Kate's wedding, the Queen's 90th birthday, and several of us that are here today met at those events and have stayed friends ever since. This is not what we expected. Yesterday we had thunder, lightning and hail.
Absolutely extraordinary that the sell out. Anyway, Her Majesty is the first British monarch to reach a platinum jubilee, and flying in to celebrate are, yeah, you guessed it, Harry and Meghan. And their children, Archie and Lilibet. And they've left their home in LA, say home, mansion, and may have already arrived at Frogmore Cottage. It's reported they'll attend Tripping the Colour tomorrow as spectators, but they won't appear on the balcony with the working royals. Prince Andrew, who he? He won't be there either. He was spotted horse riding in Windsor today. So, on the eve of the Jubilee, will the Queen be the focus of celebrations, or do you think there'll be distractions by the family? Isabel, wow. Harry and Meghan, everybody wants to talk, but...
Of course, she should be the focus, but given that they're turning up, unfortunately everyone's going to be following what they're doing, what they're saying. Do they have a Netflix crew in tow? Have they got mics hidden? What's Harry going to say in his book? You wouldn't want to be around them if you were the royal family, because he's got his book coming out. Is it in the autumn? I think it's coming out. Yeah. And it just feels like anything you say could end up in that book. So, yeah, of course he's toxic.
I mean, do you think that they're only... I mean, not only here. I mean, from a family level, I'm actually pleased that they're here and the Queen will meet their children, all that stuff on a family basis. From an institutional basis, I still don't think that they understand exactly how much damage they've done to the institution. And also, I do wonder whether, because Netflix have cancelled some aspects, are we seeing them come back because they've realised they're only valuable if they're with the royal family. They're only valuable if they're part of these great things. JJ, you know, I'm really sceptical that they're here. They're here for the money, they're here for the cameras, they're here for the, you know, the sandwiches.
They're here for Grandmama. That's who they are here for. They can't help it that they are the most popular and famous people in the royal family, other than the Queen. What? They can't help that. They are.
Their popularity rating is at its lowest ever.
In this country. In this country, not
worldwide. Does it not matter what you think in this country?
Well, it does, but we're a tiny, small island. Globally, the audience is going to be watching. It will be around the world, be much more. It will dwarf our population over here. And so I'm sorry, they are the most popular people in the family. So, of course, people are going to want to know what they're doing, where they're hanging out.
He's just making it up now.
Absolutely making it up.
Tell us where you found that information. Then.
I looked at a YouGov. No,
YouGov.
No.
YouGov. The people that say the NHS is the greatest thing about Britain.
No. The YouGov poll had them. So Harry was just below the Queen. Was it? Harry beats William, but there was a worldwide.
So not the most popular royal then.
No, but there was a worldwide poll where they were found to be as a pair.
By whom?
The world.
The world?
Globally.
Oh. Mike,
there will be 1 billion people watching tomorrow. But in what way... It's so interesting that people throw out these things like, well, they've just ruined the reputation of the royal family. I don't think they did. They called out...
I don't think they have.
Well, James just said it. They called out institutional racism as they saw it. I would argue that Prince Andrew has done a lot more to ruin the reputation...
I agree with you on that.
...of the royal family. I think it's brilliant that they've just come to see their grandmother. If you think they're toxic, I would question why you'd think it was them that was being toxic rather than the media who are hounding them and their existence at the palace.
Hounding them.
Hounding them.
Yeah, Oprah Winfrey hounded them into a worldwide interview that they didn't have to do.
No, they didn't.
Well, they made a series of allegations which turned out to be false. I don't know why you defend them.
They didn't seem to be
false.
Well,
you know what? I'm going to have a word with you during the commercial break. But first, from pomp to prisons now, Michael. Oh. Justice Secretary Dominic Raab thinks prisoners should get union flags and cupcakes to mark the Jubilee and benefit from the sense of pride and patriotism of the celebrations. He said that patriotic events in jails would be good for self-esteem and could be part of a programme of prisoners gaining skills such as catering to help them find work on the outside. So, should prisoners be allowed Jubilee parties? Listen, normally I'd probably be against this kind of thing, but it's actually really good for them. It really is.
Yeah,
Do you guys recall Gordon Ramsay's Bad Boys of Bakery when he set up the thing in Brixton? Yeah, that still goes on. And there's one guy from that called Anthony Kelly who had spent 16 years of his life in jail up until that point, on and enough. Thanks to that programme, he was clean off drugs for the first time since he was 10 years old. He was 34 at the time of doing the show. And we also know that studies have shown if you're educated and rehabilitated in prison, you are less likely to reoffend on the outside. So I think it's a great idea, and we should be supporting Dominic Raab on this.
Yeah. The irony is not lost on me, though, that they will be celebrating in Her Majesty's prison.
At her pleasure.
At her pleasure. I actually agree with Dominic Raab for once, but obviously I think they shouldn't be forced to take part in something they don't want to take part in or have this enforced patriotism put upon them. But I think it's an important part of rehabilitation to take part in social events within the prison and also to feel a kind of sense of connection to the rest of the country. Republican or not, I will still be eating cake and waving a flag.
Well, apparently Exeter Prison has been under emergency measures for quite some time. There's a very, very strong use of drugs there, so I presume the cupcakes will be made of cannabis, will they?
Wow.
Because they seem to be able to get their hands on plenty of that. You know,
That's quite
so they're
a
having a
claim to
party
make.
every night. You know, they don't need the Jubilee for it.
So, Mike, are you against them having cupcakes?
Yeah, I think
celebrating
people
it?
should be given bread and water in prison and never released.
Oh, Mike.
Isabel, talk some sense to
Mike
us,
from the
please.
18th century.
Well, the prison's actually made in the 18th century. That's how old it is. It's a Victorian prison.
So they get to celebrate Christmas, don't they? There's always, like, events in prisons in the run-up to Christmas. I think there's probably other things that they get to take part in, so I don't see why not this. I mean, what's the downside for the rest of society, Mike?
There isn't one particularly,
Well, there you
but
go.
I
You're
just
just
think
being
people...
mean-spirited
Yeah, I
then,
am
aren't
being
you?
mean-spirited. I think if you crack somebody over the head
I'm
with an
proud
iron
of it.
bar, you shouldn't be given cake as a result.
It's not every day, though, is it?
How on earth are you going to rehabilitate somebody?
You can't
And also-
rehabilitate them.
Well, you can rehabilitate some
Really?
people. Yes.
Well, like Baby P's mother, who's getting released. I don't think she can be
there we go.
rehabilitated.
Yeah,
can
but
she?
you cannot taint all of the prisoners at Her Majesty's pleasure with one case where there are some people, I'm sure, who cannot be reformed, and there are some people for whom this isn't going to work. But I actually agree with you. I think, not with you, with Jason, that, you know, this kind of rehabilitation, this kind of involvement, as long as, you know, we're not shipping in a whole load of stuff over from China and we've actually, you know, whether we've made the flags or baked here or done whatever, it's just like, here's a shared sense of pride. But also, learn some new skills. If you're not baking them yourself, if you're just shipping them
But,
in,
you know,
maybe not. But
you're all
bake them
talking
yourself.
as if you've never been inside a prison. I don't know whether
I have
you have.
been. I have.
Prisons are horrible
There you
places,
go.
right?
I
They're
didn't think it was
nasty,
that bad.
dangerous, ghastly places.
it was
And
that
most
bad.
people who get in prison have already committed about 30 crimes. They're not people who just made a mistake. You don't get to go to prison unless you've committed an awful lot of crime.
I think it's worth pointing out that they're not just going to be shipping in, like, Union Jack cupcakes just for this occasion. They will be using existing prison schemes where they're teaching the men and women how to bake various skill sets so that they can be released and be of use in society, and it will be the chefs on those schemes who will be making the cakes.
Yes. It's all a bit middle class and, like, nice, though, isn't it? It's not, like, reality.
Is it?
No, yeah, I'm afraid not.
What kind of
what's
reality
working class?
do you live in?
I live in the reality where I've been to quite a few prisons. I've dealt with quite a few people who've been victims of crime, and I don't sit around in Hampstead going, wouldn't it be nice if we let them make them cakes, because that will change everything.
It's
it won't.
but I don't think that's the message. The message is, do you make sure that people, regardless or not of whether they are in prison or not, that they understand that there are these big events going on and they are part of it? Because at some point they are going to be released and they are going to have to go back into society. And I think to have those kind of society events, it's kind of good practice.
Well, let's see if you're right.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I'm often right.
Not very often.
I might be right about this. Coming up, Virgin Atlantic is now allowing its cabin crew to display their tattoos. So, should you be allowed to show off tattoos at work? We'll be discussing that next. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV. Graham.
This is Talk TV.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Footballer Kurt Zouma has been ordered to carry out 180 hours of community service after pleading guilty to abusing his pet cat. The shocking video that you're about to see that was posted on social media, and a warning that you might find it distressing, showed him kicking his Bengal cat across the floor, slapping the animal then in front of his son. He was filmed by his brother, Johan, who laughed as Zouma chased his pet with a shoe. Both men appeared in court today and was spared jail. In addition to the community service order, Zouma was ordered to pay nearly £9,000 in court costs and is banned from owning a cat for 5 years. Thank goodness for that. So does the punishment fit the crime? Well, I actually think he should have been jailed for this. I'm not sure if others are going to agree with me about that. Nope. But I think this was a highly symbolic case. He is a role model, or should be. And I think that kind of animal abuse, it's a very, very fine line between that and abusing other vulnerable creatures, whether they're human or with 4 legs. And 180 hours is a lot of community service. So if we're thinking about the amount of public resources that are expended actually making sure that sentence is delivered, I suspect it would have been cheaper to send him to jail for a couple of weeks. And that would have sent out a really clear message. And I can tell from everybody's faces that I'm completely on my own with this one.
Well, I don't think necessarily on your own.
Right.
But I don't think he should necessarily be sent to jail, because I just wonder whether that's going to be the answer. But where's his employer in all of this? Because, say, for example...
That is a good point.
And I would actually say that the lesson should be, where does it hit somebody hurt in most? Is he going to be reformed by going to prison? No. Is he going to be reformed by...
I think he would be. I mean, that's pretty
I think
drastic.
a week in jail for him would be terrible, because if you're not a proper criminal, jail is really awful.
Yeah.
That's what we were saying earlier.
Maybe, but then isn't it better, or shouldn't the employer say, actually, we don't want this? And this is where money gets grubby. That they paid a lot of money. Was it over £6 million for him? Of course, he's been fined, or the club's been fined, and they've paid these various fines. But they're kind of buying him off, and they're saying, yeah, it's fine, because we can sort of buy it off, and it's all and then he could still play. I would actually say stop him from playing for 4 matches.
Yeah, but they wouldn't do that, because I mean, we used to get calls from West Ham fans saying, "Oh, but he's their best player." Well, why would you punish the club? Incredible, because football sort of thinks like that. And he was fined 2 weeks' wages. Everybody else was up in arms because they found out how much money he was getting, and they all went into the manager and said they wanted more money. But at the end of the day, they've kind of washed their hands of it. I think he should have been told that he can't play football for a month or maybe the rest of the season in the Premier League.
Mike, ridiculous. Look, West Ham have come out today and given a statement saying...
They said move on, didn't they?
Yeah, the court have made their decision, which they have. Time to move on, which is the way it should be. Look, Zouma was fined £250,000 from West Ham. I don't think West Ham should have got involved. The Premier League may discipline him. The FA may discipline him. But his employers, it's a business. They're trying to qualify for Europe. It's not going to help them with having their best player on the bench. Let me finish. I think what he did was appalling. But Eden Hazard kicked a ball boy. It wasn't a tap. It wasn't a little push. He kicked a ball boy. What did he get? He got a red card, a 3-match ban, but kept all his endorsements. Kurt Zouma lost all his endorsements for kicking a cat. So I'm not saying kicking a cat is less bad than kicking a child, although really, of course it is. Kicking a cat is not as bad as kicking a child, of course. But it was fine for Eden Hazard. He didn't get as punished. I'm not done. Luis Suarez found guilty of racism.
He's bossy, isn't he? I'm in charge of this one, aren't I?
Luis Suarez found guilty of racism against Patrice Evra. Fined £80,000, banned for 4 games, didn't lose a single endorsement. And yet here we're saying for a guy who kicks a cat to be put behind bars.
But what does it say about football?
Yeah,
also, all the things that you mentioned happened as part of a game of football, didn't they?
Yeah.
Whereas this is outside of football, and it's caused an awful lot of copycat, if you'll pardon the pun, incidents, because loads of people have started drop-kicking their cats and drop-kicking cats. Yes, on YouTube. Of course they have.
I really hope
that's what
not
happens.
the case.
Nicola,
I can see that you want to come in here.
I think you're all missing the most important point here, which is that he was given a 5-year ban from owning a cat. In my opinion, whatever financial or prison time he would serve, you have a lifetime ban on ever owning any animals ever again. It was horrific. And if people are doing copycat videos on social media, they deserve exactly the same thing. Immediately shot them into the police, to the RSPCA.
Yeah.
Never do you ever...
but what about the jail thing? Where are you on that?
No, I don't think a jail sentence...
extreme.
I think a jail sentence would have been extreme. I'd say more community service.
But 180 hours is a big community service.
It's only 18 days if you do 10-hour days.
He won't be able to do 10
Sounds like a lot of hard work.
Training, they'll say, oh, he needs to play football. He'll have to do it all in the off-season.
Yeah, do it in the off-season.
But he's going to be playing international matches. He's an international player. You know?
Well, then he has to sacrifice some football in order to fulfil his community service.
And I think he should.
Yep.
And I think it sends a really bad message that, JJ, all the things that you said about football, I get it, but it just shows if you've got money, if you've got the power, if you've got the influence, you can pretty much drive roughshod over everything.
We've got to move on. Virgin Atlantic has become the first airline in the UK to allow its cabin crew to display their tattoos. The change in policy comes a month after it launched a new campaign championing diversity. But with a third of 18 to 35-year-olds now being inked and the airline industry scrambling for staff, is it no surprise they've decided to be less picky about those staff? Virgin have said they'll still have standards, so there's no face and neck tattoos. Apparently that's a no-no. Isabel, do you fancy being served by, you know, a cabin crew covered in tattoos?
I think it's confession time from around this table as to how many people are hiding tattoos. But I think, at the end of the day, Virgin, I don't have any... I'm not inked, so I'm not part of that. But I believe there are others around this table who are, and they're hiding them, and it's up to them whether they wish to reveal.
Right. Well, there's certainly none here, just in case.
Just to the point about Virgin, look, they're a private company. It is up to them to set what kind of image they want. I'm not convinced this is necessarily going to do their brand any good, but maybe it will. Maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned about that. It's up to them, really.
I feel that so many people now have tattoos. It's actually more rebellious not to have any at all.
Yeah.
You know? But you guys are tattooed, are you?
I'm not, no.
So you're the only one then?
It's just
only
me.
JJ.
It's just JJ.
Gosh, yeah, I'm covered. My body is covered in tattoos, basically.
Don't tell us why.
But I think, yeah, facial tattoos and neck tattoos is a bit much for me. And also cheap and tacky tattoos. I see guys with lipstick tattooed onto their necks. That's just cheap and crass.
So it's a class thing then?
It's a class thing.
Yeah.
I think some jobs you can get away with it, but I don't want to go to my doctor and see my doctor with tattoos all over his neck and face. It doesn't make...
You wouldn't want your surgeon to come in, would you, to do a heart op on you with covered in tattoos?
No.
Would you?
Well, you wouldn't know, would you?
Well, you might do. You might see it on his hand. You might see it on his hand.
Well, I don't think you're awake when they're doing that.
They do talk to you before they do it, if you can actually get surgery.
Gloves.
If you can actually get surgery.
What about facial piercings, like nose rings or...
So, interestingly, so on the advert that they're showing at the moment, there's a woman who goes in showing several tongue piercings while singing I Am What I Am. They actually don't allow tongue piercings on board. But I think this is amazing. Look, it's about celebrating individuality. They had to let go of a lot of people back... Oh, they lost a lot of staff back in 2019, and actually, in the process of recruiting people, they found if they didn't accept people with tattoos, they weren't going to fulfil their quota. But they have said that they won't accept tattoos at the moment that have swearing, nudity, reference to violence, drugs, alcohol, or those love-hate prison tattoos on the knuckles.
I'm out
so
then.
they do have some standards.
But, I mean, that's the other thing. I think at the moment, the way the airline business is going, I mean, if they can just get you from point A to point B, I don't think everybody cares.
Exactly.
What's going on?
I mean, there's an element of me that says, you know, it's right that they should do it because I think stigmatising people for it, as you say, there's so many younger people who have them. I still think that they're awful, and I still think that by the time, I mean, thankfully, the 35-year-olds, when they get to 85, I'll be long gone, so I won't have to see what they look like on their terrible, saggy bodies. But frankly, you know, tattoos on older people, they look terrible, people. Stop it. Stop doing it. You're ruining your body. Public health warning there.
Absolutely right.
But I bet you wouldn't mind it if it meant you could go on holiday and someone could man that aeroplane for you. You wouldn't mind staring at a saggy tattoo to get to Barbados.
Well, maybe, you know, I know everybody's desperate to go on holiday. Frankly, if I could just avoid a queue, then I think I'd be all over it. Meanwhile, coming up, the NHS. Well, they've topped a poll of what we see as the best thing about Britain. Do you agree? We'll be discussing that next. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Now, what do you think is the best thing about Britain? Well, 62% of us say it's the National Health Service. That's according to a survey by YouGov. The countryside came a close second, followed by Britain's history, the monarchy and freedom of speech. The Royals dropped 8 popularity points since the last poll taken 10 years ago. This shift was driven by young people, just 9% of whom voted for the Royals. By contrast, a third of 18 to 24-year-olds said diversity was the best thing about Britain. So, what are you most proud of about Britain, James?
You know, there are lots of things that I think make Britain great, and there are some fantastic things that we have. I do worry that when we choose things like the NHS, it then becomes something that nobody can touch, which means that you can't reform it, you can't change it, you can't deal with its problems, because you can't possibly be the politician who talks about it. So my view is, stop loving the NHS like that. Let's deal with it as a taxpayer-funded institution. Stop loving it. It's brilliant. It's great. We move on. Where is the pub in that list? You don't find pubs all over the world. Everybody, all around the world, they go, when I come to Britain, don't look at me like that. The British pub is amazing.
Are you going to go to the pub if you have a heart attack?
To be honest, it might be better.
You probably get more chance of finding a doctor
to get over the
honest.
recovery of it.
You know.
But look, there are lots of great things, and I do actually agree about countryside and the monarchy and the institutions that we have, and I do recognise that the NHS, particularly post-pandemic, it's really done its job. But I think the problem is that you deify something like that, and then you don't deal with the fact that it wastes a lot of money, that there have been some real awful scandals within the NHS, that we have a system that needs reform in order to deliver that very original founding principle. There are a whole load of things that are wrong with it, but you can't touch it because everybody goes, it's so amazing.
We all love things that are flawed, and I don't think that that's any reason. You know, of course, but we're all flawed.
But James, you said wasting money, needs reform.
Yes.
What was the other thing? Wasting money, needs reform, doesn't work.
And doesn't
you
work
could have just described the royal family, mate. You know what I mean?
No,
exactly. Well, that's an outrageous thing to say, because the Queen has been working for 70 years, so for you to say that it doesn't work is absolute rubbish.
The Queen, fantastic. But
she doesn't work from home either.
This is a generational split, mate, because half of those aged 65 and over say the royal family is the best thing about Britain.
Yes.
Only 9% of those aged 18 to 24 say the same. So
yeah, because they haven't been taught properly, because we've all got this wokery going on in all of our classrooms, that they've just driven this dribble that you can't possibly have anybody who turns up terrible.
This entire YouGov poll has been discredited, right, by number 7, which is being an island. Right? I mean, it's an island. That's not great. It just happens to be an island. And also, it's not an island, it's several islands put together. There's many, many islands that make up Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So, in fact, they don't know what they're doing.
I want to hear from Isabel on this.
Well, I think a more funny survey would have been what's the worst things about Britain.
True.
We could have found out a lot on that. I mean, I'm completely
the
NHS. Exactly that. I agree with you, Jane. I hate these, we love the NHS things, because, like you, I think that it doesn't help in any way to make the NHS better. The NHS could be one of the best things about this country, but the reality is it sadly isn't. And, you said it's been doing its job post-pandemic. There are millions of people waiting in pain for operations. There are people who've waited over a year. In fact, I think there are some people who've waited over 2 years. That is shocking. It's a disgrace. It's not something that we should be proud of.
I don't think that's the NHS's fault. That's the fact that we were locked down for the best part of 2 years. And it was already in trouble because we had 10 to 12 years of austerity measures where there weren't enough nurses were being hired, there weren't enough doctors being trained. Of course we're going to have issues that we have.
Yeah, lots of diversity.
So you shouldn't be proud of it then. It's not working,
as
you
there
just
is.
said.
Anyway,
it's the best thing.
Sorry to interrupt this debate here, because we must move on to the short and sharp debates from our panel. It's time for Small Talk. So to Mike, you've got the first one.
Yeah, well, apparently the Office for National Statistics doesn't work very well either, because they reckon 2 million people in the UK are estimated to be suffering from long COVID. Nobody can actually define what long COVID is. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows who's got it. Nobody knows what the effects of it are. Well, you might say you've got it.
I've got it.
You look all right to me. 1.4 million of those with self-reported long COVID say it adversely impacts their ability to participate in day-to-day activities. It might well be. It could well be that we don't know an awful lot about COVID. It might well be that people have been damaged by it, and we'll find out sometime in the future. But I worry slightly that people say they're suffering from this because it's not definable, you can't really prove that you've got it or not, can you?
Nodding in agreement with him.
True, but it's true. It's a bit like the back pain thing, with loads of people saying they've got back pain, so they don't have to go to work. Look, I think long COVID is clearly very real. There are clearly people who are suffering a great deal from whatever set of symptoms it is. But 2 million, really?
Yeah,
I mean,
perhaps.
Why don't you tell us?
I have long COVID, so
how do you know?
Because the doctor told me so. I get short of breath easier. I have less energy. I'm tired more.
You're getting older.
Everything is more of a strain. I'm approaching 40.
Wait till you get to my age.
But I think we should take it seriously, of course. Whether it's 2 million or not, it's a real thing, I'm afraid. Sorry, guys.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, quite. Nicola, what have you got for us?
Well, I'm fuming about this story. So, TV presenter Amy Christophers says that she was left feeling sick after one of her interviewees slapped her bum while she was broadcasting at the races. She posted the incident on social media. I think we've got a clip of it right here.
Well, I want to know, how's your impressions of a jockey? Can you show me how you ride a horse? Go on.
We ride a horse probably better than you ride a horse.
I want to see it. Give us...
Yeehaw! Way! There you go. Put that online.
So, should the man in question be banned from future races? I would say yes. I hated that he said initially, well, better than you, and then had the audacity to slap her bum, which is sexual assault, no matter how you look at it, and then goes on afterwards to say, put that online.
But it was a stupid
question.
she was asking.
The whole thing is pretty...
I'm sorry, a TV presenter's not allowed to ask stupid questions. We've all asked stupid questions in our time.
Show me. I mean, and the guy's got a pint in his hand.
Exactly.
Sorry, are we... Guys, I just need to check myself. Are we justifying that somebody should have their...
No.
Because it sounds like that's what's going on.
It's not justifying, it's just that the whole thing looks in pretty poor taste. You're getting guys to pretend they're riding a horse.
Yeah.
And they're sort of swivelling their hips. Well, you know, what's that for?
She's asking some guys who are clearly inebriated, show us how you ride a horse, and then my understanding of that is he slapped the bottom as if he's like whipping a horse. That was my understanding.
Yeah, that's how I read it. I also felt the way she asked the question was kind of full of innuendo anyway. You know, it was really crass.
It was crass.
Pretty
he was trash. Doesn't justify it at all. Totally agree with the shock and horror. But I don't think she asked the best question.
No.
Yeah.
Poorly handled.
Nicola was silenced.
No dear.
And with that advantage, I shall move on to the next story. Wowzers. A corgi is for life, not just the Jubilee. According to this story, corgis, they're synonymous with the Queen. But as the Jubilee approaches, animal charity PETA... Why do I always get the PETA story? Is it because they're just... I don't know. No, I won't say it. They've urged Brits to never buy them. The campaign group said they have serious health issues and purchasing them supports breeders who churn out litter after litter for profit. According to PETA, inbreeding has led to pedigree corgis developing legs that are too short for their bodies, causing most of them to have painful spine and hip ailments. Look, I think any pet, if they're overbred, I think there's an element to this argument. If a particular breed is overbred, there's a danger to it. Having said that, a lot of what Peter says is nonsense, and frankly, I do want to see corgis exist. They're lovely little dogs. As long as you don't have them near small children, can get a bit snappy. Still a bit snappy.
I don't really see them around, though. I never, ever see
seen
corgis.
one
I remember, like, back in the 80s,
they
were corgis
everywhere.
around.
My friend's got one. Little Hermes, and he does have lots of health issues.
Hermes.
Okay, good.
Yes, Hermes. But I think there's nothing wrong. Like you say, with every pedigree, they're going to have health issues. I hate in this country. I hate crufts. As much as I love the dog show, I hate the idea that we're trying to pure breed these creatures who can't breathe, can't walk, have miserable lives. A lot of them when they're only a few years old. So, like, crossbreed all of them instead.
Oh, no, you've got to keep the pure breeds, but just don't overbreed. That's what I would say. Anyway, look, what if we lost the Cocker Spaniel? That would be a shock and a terror. Isabel, what have you got for us?
So, Joe Biden has admitted that he and his wife argue over text. Apparently, when he first became vice president, they came up with a deal that they shouldn't argue in public, which doesn't strike me as a particularly radical decision from two very, very public figures. The question we're asking is it a better idea not to argue with your partner in public, which seems to me quite obviously yes. Anyone disagree with that?
He doesn't look like the sort of guy that would put up much of a fight, to be honest. I mean, I'm not sure he'd be very good at arguing.
He might be better over text.
It'd be an end to this show, I tell you.
I'm a big believer in arguing over text. Never mind, obviously you shouldn't argue in public as much as you can avoid it, but even if you want to argue in private, me and my boyfriend the other day fell out over something stupid, and we walked in separate rooms and just texted each other about it, because it means you can have a bit of time to think about what you're going to say, write it out, send it. There's not going to be any quick reactions. I think it's really healthy.
Oh, I hate it.
Not for everything. No, not for everything.
Because it's there forever. That pointed
press
thing.
delete. You're all right after that.
Yeah, you reckon?
I think it's dangerous over text. Stuff gets lost in translation. You can never quite tell the tone.
Emojis are for.
That's what emojis are for.
Maybe that's what they're for. JJ, what do you got for us?
Elvis impersonators could be banned from Vegas weddings. So, yeah, big gaff. Las Vegas chapels could be banned from using Elvis impersonators because a licensing company that controls the name and image of the king has sent cease and desist letters. So, Mike, that is the end of your future.
Yeah, I'm told that there's a drive-in Elvis Memorial Chapel where you can go and just drive through and get married.
Yeah.
Great idea. Because you could go round the other side and get divorced. Shortest marriage ever. You know, tremendous.
Well, I don't know how this works in terms of, well, when do they stop with this, with tribute bands who are then going to be singing your songs and everything else? Do you stop them from performing as well?
I think it's a company that own his image rights. There's a similar company that own Marilyn Monroe, and then they can sell it to, sell Marilyn Monroe's image to Dior, for example, where they used her to bring her back to life to create an advert, or Audrey Hepburn was used for Galaxy Chocolate.
Well, who does that, though, at a wedding?
I know, precisely. I don't think that no one's making money necessarily from this, except that, they're just wedding people. I think allow people their wedding wishes.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Vegas is horrible. Have you ever been there?
I've never been. I'd love to
get married. It is very, very grubby.
Yeah, it's
it's like eating the greasiest, dirtiest takeaway. Yeah. In a place.
Yeah, rolled in gold dust.
I'm not sure where in Vegas you guys were staying and eating, but I went there and it was marvellous. I swear.
It says pretty much everything about me. Yeah. It says everything you need to know about JJ. Vegas is one for the nuts on that bombshell. Anyway, there we go. That's all we got time for tonight. Thanks very much indeed to our panellists. Isabel Oakeshott, JJ, Anna Siobi, Nicola Thorpe, and to Mike Graham, who's back on Talk TV tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be on from 5 a.m. And we'll see you again tomorrow night on The Talk. Goodbye.